And now I'm going to go ahead and let reporters in. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Schindel-Decker. Thank you for joining us today as the Minnesota Department of Public Safety and the State Fire Marshal releases our data on fire deaths in 2022. We will have 3 speakers for you today. Amanda Swenson is the interim state fire marshal. She will detail how our analysts compiled the data to determine the fire death number for 2022 and go over the trends that we are seeing within those results. Brainerd Fire Chief Tim Holmes is also with us. He will speak specifically to how Greater Minnesota is represented in these numbers and the impact these deaths have on fire service professionals. Plymouth Fire Chief Roger Coppa can speak to metro area fire deaths and some of the things Minnesotans can do within their everyday lives to reduce fire risks. We'll wrap up with our plans to reach people with critical safety messages throughout the rest of the year. And we'll also offer action steps to reduce fire risks. Then we can take questions. Before we hand it over to Amanda Swenson for the run of show here, I ask that all media members mute their mics. We're hearing some audio from media. If you could mute your mics or check your mics right now, that would be great. All right, I am also going to be turning off my camera. I do have some slides that I'm going to show as they speak at various points. But with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Amanda Swenson.
Thank you, Amber. I'm Amanda Swenson. I'm serving as the interim state fire marshal. I truly wish I was coming to you with better news today, but after our staff have worked to analyze the fire death numbers for 2022, it resulted in 70 Minnesotans dying in fires last year. While these are the numbers, they're also people. They were loved, they had families, jobs, lives, and their future was really tragically cut short. So if 70 seems like a high number, it is. It is the highest number of fire fatalities that we've had in Minnesota since 1995, or 27 years. And back in 1995, that number was 86. So to get to this number, our fire investigations unit collects data working with our fire departments across the state throughout the year. And then we also reach out to our partners in Minnesota Department of Health for their records related to fire fatalities. And so we analyze that data, look where the overlaps are, and determine what is truly considered a fire fatality. And that was where the determination of 70 fire fatalities came from. So a few highlights or takeaways from that data: 48 of the fire deaths were men, 22 were females, and the average victim, 56 years old. Those victims ranged in age from 6 to 90. But simply put, the data and the numbers maybe simplifies things. The majority of these deaths are not a result of social media challenges gone wrong that we sometimes hear about, but behaviors and actions that sometimes we take multiple times in our lifetime, and then tragically something goes wrong. 9 of the fire deaths last year were caused by careless smoking. And this includes people who improperly extinguished their cigarette before going to bed, or people smoking on oxygen. 13 of the fire deaths involved vehicle crashes that resulted in a fire, and 29 of the 70 fire deaths occurred when drugs or alcohol were present, whether they were prescription or illegal drugs. And 6 of those had both drugs and alcohol in the system. So it's important to note that while many of these fires can be tracked back to those lifestyle behavior decisions, some of these fire deaths were the result of accidental incidents such as scalding from boiling water, carbon monoxide poisoning, or a gas leak. So the data presents some really startling information as it relates to fire deaths between the 7-county metro area as well as greater Minnesota. And to speak more to that, Brainerd Fire Chief Tim Holmes is here to provide some insight on that.
Mute your mic.
We're not getting your sound, Tim.
Oh, of course, right? Thanks, Amanda. I'm Tim Holmes with the Brainerd Fire Department. Minnesota's metro may be the most populous, but unfortunately, greater Minnesota has the distinction of having the most fire deaths. In 2022, data shows that 59% of all deadly fires took place in 30 counties in greater Minnesota. Those fires account for 41 of the 70 deaths. Those numbers become starker when you break it down by population. In the 7-county metro area, there are 9.7 fatal fires per million people. In greater Minnesota, fatal fires jumped to 21.4 per million people. This data is troublesome to greater Minnesota firefighters for a number of reasons. The first, we are already at a disadvantage because paid-on-call firefighters staff many of these departments. These paid-on-call firefighters consistently face the challenge of first having to arrive to the station, gear up, get on a truck before they even get to the emergency scene. When deadly fires occur, it not only takes a toll on the victims, the victims' loved ones, but also our community and our firefighters. They often assist in the investigations to determine the cause of the fire. Unfortunately, these investigations aren't neat like they are on TV and solved in a 1-hour primetime TV episode. These cases are labor intensive and they often involve emotional work. It's incredibly taxing on our firefighters, and we feel the loss as much as the family and the community. The perfect scenario in these is that we would save everyone in every fire. The reality is we can't do that. So when seconds count between life and death, we are imploring people to ask yourself a few questions. How am I putting me and my loved ones in danger? Could I be making different decisions, whether they're big or small, to my lifestyle to reduce fire risks? And what kind of behavior do I routinely engage in that puts me at the risk of a fire death? We just ask that you help us help you in these situations. Chief Roger Kappa is here to detail the fire service will be working to offer help to Minnesotans at risk and action steps you can take to be safer in your community.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Roger Kappa. I'm the Plymouth Fire Chief and the Plymouth Fire Marshal. The fire service really does take these numbers seriously. 70 is way too many. And we're committed to meeting people where they are to reduce these preventable fire deaths. I just want to ask you, how many of you think about the possibility of having to escape a vehicle because you were speeding and crashed into something? It's one thing to crash while you're under the influence while speeding or distracted, but it's just another thing to now, on top of that, to try to escape if it starts on fire. And how many of you know a loved one who smokes in bed or smokes while on oxygen? And would you rather say something to that loved one ahead of time to prevent that tragedy, or wake up one day to the news that some type of careless smoking incident killed them? How many of you have cooked food after having a couple of alcoholic beverages? We all know that our ability to make decisions or to do things normally decreases when impaired with alcohol and drug use. All these examples, increase our risk of experiencing a deadly fire. You don't need to be engaging in shameful or illegal behavior to be putting you or your loved ones in danger. This is why we're working with community partners across the state this year. These organizations already have one-on-one relationships with people who may need help. For instance, health coalitions who already make house calls and can check in on homebound Minnesotans who may be living in at-risk environments. Nonprofits who often provide daily necessities such as clothing and food for those in need who are unaware of their fire risks. And state, local, and federal stakeholders that can help us encourage changes to our everyday behaviors to help us keep our communities safer. This year's data shows that this work really truly is necessary. Already in 2023, fire deaths are trending ahead of where they were last year. We don't want to go into next year reporting another increase in fire deaths. That's why we're asking people to stop and take a beat, not only when they're around fire sources or open flames, but when primary actions may cause a secondary emergency, such as smoking or driving a vehicle under the influence. Fire deaths truly are preventable. No one expects a fire in their daily routine, but it could happen at any time. So today I ask that you please do these 3 things that could save you and your loved ones. We ask that everyone practice fire safety in their home and at work. Have a fire escape plan and practice it. And test your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms monthly. With that, I will turn it back over to Amber.
Thank you, Amanda, Roger, and Tim. I will go ahead and open it up to questions now. Okay, it looks like we do have a question in the chat. It looks like somebody wants to know, how many fire deaths did Minnesota have in 2020 and 2021 prior to last year? I will go ahead and field that one to Amanda.
Thank you. Yes, we've actually been trending up the last couple of years. And so in 2020, we had 62 fatalities, 2021, 67. So certainly want to end that upward trend.
And that's a good question. We will be having a news release sent out to all statewide media, same recipients that received the news advisory this morning, that will go and delve into greater detail of the fire deaths within a 5-year time frame, as well as a longer time frame than that. And if you have any other questions about fire death data, feel free to reach out to me and I can point you to the website on the State Fire Marshal website where you can glean more information. In fact, I'll go ahead and post it in our chat box here as we have it right now. Any other questions at this time? Brent asks, is the number of car fire related deaths on the rise too? Let me go ahead and pose that question to Amanda, and just to glean your thoughts on car fire deaths.
That is one that I'll have to look up the data. I don't have at my fingertips the number of vehicle fire deaths in the recent years, but we can certainly get that data for you. And I don't know if either chief has some anecdotal comments that they want to add about vehicle fires.
So in the metro, we have seen an increase in, again, allow Amanda to look up the details specifically and the data specifically, but anecdotally, the increase in speed over the last few years has really increased the level of damage to those vehicles when there is an impact, which results not often, but has increased the number of fires resulting from the crashes. So even just vehicle fires related to crashes has increased. So the opportunity for those, because of those speeds and those impact forces, along with now the fire relating to those fire deaths, are increasing.
Thank you. It looks like we have at least one more reporter typing a question. Peter Cox asks, are there specific areas of the state, more in detail than rural versus metro, that have seen higher fire death rates than others? Once again, I'll go ahead and kick it back to Amanda for that. We might have to go ahead and pull out some more data for you, Peter, but if she has any anecdotal thoughts on that.
They really are spread across greater Minnesota. And so, there is not one specific area. We do and have been tracking fire deaths for years. And each year in our Fire Minnesota report, we have a map of Minnesota that tracks the total number of fire fatalities in the last, I think it's 40 years or so in that report. And there's only 3 counties in the state that have not experienced a fire fatality in that time frame.
Another question from William Volkman-Lean. When are the fire deaths most common during the year? How can these be prevented? Amanda, I'm going to go right back to you for the data well.
Sure. Typically what we see in colder climates, we generally talk about the winter season, that heating season, with those increases of use of not only our regular furnaces and heating equipment, but also alternative sources. But for fires, we're seeing they're kind of leveling out across the board. There is not true spikes in that data. And so definitely something for us to keep an eye on of why those trends are and what is causing those fires in various times of the year.
And then just that follow-up question, Amanda, or maybe I can kick it to Chief Holmes. Just some general prevention tips for how these fire deaths, especially in the cold winter months, can be prevented for people.
Sure, yeah, I can help you with that. A lot of times we just want to make sure we're doing preventative measures such as not overloading outlets, not putting heaters on multiplex type extension cords, things like that. As always, making sure that our smoke detectors are working appropriately. If you're heating with wood, make sure that you're using a professional to clean your chimney and make sure you're taking the measures necessary to make sure that your chimney is safe to to be using throughout the year. When you're heating with an additional heater, make sure that blankets or kids' toys or anything like that aren't right up close to that heating element. Those are just a few things that we can do proactively to decrease the risk of fire.
Thank you, Chief Holmes. And Amanda, I would be remiss if I also didn't point out that careless smoking and unattended cooking are also big fire causes in Minnesota. What would you like to say about those two fire causes?
Yeah, so unattended cooking nationally, and Minnesota follows the trend, #1 leading cause of fires. We all have busy lives. We're trying to multitask and watch the kids, do laundry, check social media, all of those things while food's on the stove. And it's really important to pay attention when you're cooking and be in the kitchen and be present and try to eliminate all of those distractions, because it doesn't take long for items on the stove to catch fire. Our leading cause of fatal fires continuously is related to cigarette use. And so ensuring that you're using a deep container, a proper container for cigarettes, and extinguishing them fully, maybe even add a little water to make sure they're completely out. Avoid smoking indoors, especially in bed or upholstered furniture. Another problem with smoking is that it is so close to you that it really makes it hard to escape when there is a fire related to smoking materials.
Those are all really great tips, Amanda. We do have one more question. You had mentioned that there were 3 counties in Minnesota history since we've been tracking without a death. Do you happen to know those 3 counties off the top of your head?
I do. So the time period is since 1990, and the 3 counties are Traverse, Stevens, and Murray counties.
Okay, I am going to count the allotted 20 seconds to see if there are any other questions from media. And if there are none, I think we will wrap it up. As I said earlier, the news release should have gone out while we were in this media availability, and that answers some more questions and goes into finer detail about the data that we have presented you with here today. Should you have any follow-up questions or need us to mine into the data a little bit further, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can go ahead and work with our data analyst teams and work with the interim state fire marshal here to get answers to your questions. With that, I think I've taken up the allotment of the 20 seconds. I'd like to thank Interim State Fire Marshal Amanda Swenson, Plymouth Fire Chief Roger Coppa, and Brainerd Fire Chief Tim Holmes for joining us here today. Appreciate your time and attention to this very important matter. And hopefully, with any luck, we will be coming to you with better news for 2023 fire deaths next year. All right. Thank you. And we will be in touch should you have any questions. Great. Yeah.
Thank you, Chiefs.
Thank you.
Let us know what else we can do anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.